What happens when one of the biggest names in Hollywood walks into a radio studio, sits across from a legendary host, and completely loses control on live air? In just 36 seconds of one comment, everything fell apart. The microphones were hot, the cameras were rolling, and what came next shocked everyone watching. But before we get into it, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now, because we're pulling back the curtain on Hollywood's dark side, exposing entitled celebrities and their shocking behavior the cameras never showed you. We've got the raw footage they don't want you to see, and you won't want to miss a single reveal. Drop your thoughts in the comments about this outrageous behavior, because you are not going to believe what happened next. So let me set the scene for you. Howard Stern's studio. You know the one. That iconic room where some of the biggest stars in the world have sat down for real, unfiltered conversations. The kind of place where egos get checked at the door and authenticity matters more than your last box office number. Howard's been doing this for decades. He's interviewed presidents, rock stars, actors, comedians, you name it. And he's built his entire career on one simple principle: honesty. No sugarcoating, no playing it safe, just real talk. Now, Meghan Markle walks in. She's there to promote her latest project, talk about her life, maybe share some insights about her journey. Standard interview stuff, right? Wrong. From the moment she sits down, something feels off. The energy in that room is strange. You can feel it through the audio. Howard tries to start with some light conversation, some warmth, trying to make his guests feel comfortable like he always does. He says, "Welcome to the show. It's great to have you here. I've been looking forward to this conversation." Pretty standard opener, friendly, professional, but the response he gets back is cold, ice cold. She looks at him and says, "I'm sure you have. Everyone wants a piece of me these days." Now, Howard's dealt with big egos before. This is nothing new to him. He sat across from some of the most famous people on planet Earth. So he tries to laugh it off, keep things moving. He says, "Well, that's what happens when you're in the spotlight. People are curious about you. They want to know your story." Seems reasonable, right? Just acknowledging reality. But she's not having it. She fires back. "Curious? Is that what we're calling it now? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks more like obsession, an unhealthy one." Okay, now the tension is rising. You can hear it. The people in the studio can feel it. Howard's producers are probably looking at each other, wondering where this is heading. But Howard, being the professional he is, he tries to redirect. He tries to bring it back to why she's actually there. He says, "Let's talk about your new project then. That's what you came here to discuss, right? Tell the audience what you've been working on." Simple question, open-ended, giving her the floor to talk about whatever she wants. But instead of taking the opportunity, she decides to go on the attack. She says, "You know what, Howard? I came here thinking this would be different, that you would be different, but you're just like all the rest, trying to pry into my personal life, trying to get me to say something controversial so you can have your little viral moment." Now, anyone who knows Howard Stern knows that's not how he operates. Sure, he asks tough questions. Sure, he pushes boundaries. But he's not trying to ambush anyone. He's trying to have a real conversation. And he's given her multiple chances to steer this in a positive direction. But she's not interested. Howard stays calm. He's not raising his voice. He's not getting defensive. He simply says, "That's not what this is. I ask everyone questions. That's the job. If there's something you don't want to talk about, just say so. We can move on." Fair enough, right? Clear boundaries, mutual respect. But that's not good enough for her. She leans forward and her voice gets sharp. She says, "Oh, how generous of you, the great Howard Stern, giving me permission to set boundaries in my own interview. Do you hear yourself? Do you understand how condescending that sounds?" The studio has gone completely silent. Dead air. Which, in radio, is like a cardinal sin. But nobody knows what to say. Howard's trying to process what's happening. His co-hosts are frozen, and she's just sitting there, staring him down like she's expecting an apology. Howard takes a breath. He's still professional, still trying to salvage this. He says, "I'm not trying to be condescending. I'm trying to have a conversation with you. But if you're not interested in that, I don't know what you want from me." And that's when she completely snaps. She stands up, not like she's getting ready to leave, but like she's getting ready to make a point. And she points her finger directly at Howard and says, "What I want? What I want is for people like you to stop treating me like I'm some kind of public property, like I owe you something, like my time, my story, my life is yours to pick apart for entertainment." Now, Howard's not the kind of person who gets pushed around in his own studio. He's respectful, but he's not a doormat. And he's definitely not going to sit there and be lectured by someone who agreed to come on his show. He says, very calmly, "Nobody forced you to be here. You came here voluntarily. Your team reached out to my team. This was your choice." Facts. Just straight facts. But she doesn't want to hear it. She cuts him off and says, "My choice? You think I had a choice? You think I wanted to sit here and deal with this? With you? I'm here because my publicist said it would be good for my image." Well, you know what? I don't care about my image anymore. I care about my dignity, and I'm not going to sit here and let you strip that away from me. The people in the studio are stunned. Howard's looking at her like he can't believe what he's hearing, because nothing he said was even remotely close to attacking her dignity. He asked her about her project. He welcomed her to the show. He tried to make her comfortable, and this is what he gets in return. Howard finally says, "I think you need to take a step back and think about what you're saying right now, because you're being completely unreasonable." And that, right there, that's the moment. That's the 36 seconds that started it all. Because the second Howard calls her out, she loses it completely. She raises her voice and says, "Unreasonable? You want to see unreasonable? How about the fact that I've been sitting here for 10 minutes and you haven't once acknowledged what I've been through? The scrutiny, the attacks, the constant invasion of privacy. But no, let's just pretend like everything's fine and have a nice little chat, right?" Howard's had enough. You can hear it in his voice. The patience is gone. He says, "I'm not your therapist. I'm a radio host. You came on my show to promote something, and instead you've done nothing but attack me from the moment you sat down. I don't know what you expected, but this isn't it." She laughs, not a real laugh, one of those bitter, sarcastic laughs. And she says, there it is, the real Howard Stern. The guy who pretends to care but really just wants to put people in their place. Well, congratulations, you've made your point. But Howard's not done. He leans back in his chair and says, "My point? My point is that you walked in here with an attitude. You've been hostile from the start, and now you're trying to make me the bad guy because I won't sit here and take it. That's not how this works." She crosses her arms. She's fuming. You can practically feel the heat coming through the speakers. And she says, "You don't get to tell me how this works. You don't get to tell me anything. I've dealt with people like you my entire life. People who think they can say whatever they want because they have a microphone and an audience. Well, I have an audience too, and they're going to hear about this." That's a threat. A clear, direct threat. And Howard doesn't take threats lightly. He says, "Is that supposed to scare me? You think I'm worried about what you're going to say? I've been doing this for 40 years. I've been criticized by everyone, politicians, activists, other celebrities, and I'm still here, so go ahead, say whatever you want." Now she's pacing, actually pacing around the studio, and she says, "You're unbelievable. You sit here in your little kingdom, judging everyone, acting like you're some kind of truth teller, but you're just a bully with a platform." Howard's voice gets very quiet, very serious. He says, "I'm going to give you one chance to apologize, not to me. To my team. To the people in this room who have done nothing but try to make you comfortable. You've insulted all of us. And if you can't see that, then you need to leave." She stops pacing. She looks at him. And she says, "Apologize? You want me to apologize? For what? For standing up for myself? For not playing along with your little game?" Howard doesn't even hesitate. He says, "For being disrespectful. For coming into my studio and treating everyone like they're beneath you. That's what I want you to apologize for." And she just stares at him. No words, no response, just silence. And then, finally, she says, "I'm not apologizing for anything." That's it. That's the line. Howard presses a button on his console and says to his producers, "Get her out of here. We're done." Security gets called. Not because she's being physically aggressive, but because Howard has the right to remove anyone from his studio who's being disruptive. And she is absolutely being disruptive. She's ruined the entire interview. She's made everyone uncomfortable, and she's shown zero willingness to have an actual conversation. As security approaches, she grabs her bag and says, "You're making a huge mistake. You have no idea who you're dealing with." Howard, without missing a beat, says, "I know exactly who I'm dealing with. Someone who thought they could come in here and throw a tantrum because they didn't get treated like royalty. Well, this isn't that kind of show." She walks toward the door, but she can't resist getting the last word in. She turns around and says, "Your show is a joke. "You're a joke, and everyone's going to know about this." Howard just shrugs and says, "Fine by me. At least I can sleep at night knowing I tried to be professional. Can you say the same?" She doesn't answer. She just storms out. The door slams, and the studio is left in complete shock. Howard's co-hosts don't even know what to say. One of them finally breaks the silence and says, "Well, that was insane." Howard takes off his headphones, leans back in his chair, and says, "I've done thousands of interviews. Thousands. And I have never, ever seen anything like that. She came in here looking for a fight, and when I didn't give her one, she created it herself." Another co-host chimes in and says, "You gave her every opportunity to turn it around. You were more than fair." Howard nods and says, "I know, but some people don't want fair. They want special treatment, and when they don't get it, they lash out." He takes a sip of water, composes himself, and then addresses the audience directly. He says, "Look, I don't know what happened before she got here. Maybe she was having a bad day. Maybe there's something going on in her life that we don't know about. But that doesn't excuse her behavior. You don't get to come on someone's show and disrespect them. You just don't." One of the producers comes back into the studio and confirms that she's left the building. Howard shakes his head and says, "Good. I hope she finds whatever it is she's looking for, but it's not going to be here." The team tries to move on. They try to transition into the next segment, but the energy is completely different now. Everyone's still processing what just happened. Because it's not every day that a guest gets kicked off the show. In fact, it's extremely rare. Howard's known for giving people chances, for letting them speak their minds. But there's a line, and she crossed it. Howard eventually says, "You know what the worst part is? We could have had a good conversation. We could have talked about real things. But she didn't want that. She wanted drama. She wanted conflict. And now that's all anyone's going to remember." He's right. Because no matter what she does next, no matter what projects she works on, this moment is going to follow her. The moment she got kicked off Howard Stern's show. The moment she showed the world who she really is when things don't go her way. And here's the thing. Howard didn't want it to go down like that. You can hear it in his voice. He's disappointed, not angry, not vindictive, just disappointed. Because he respects his guests. He respects the craft of interviewing. And when someone comes in and treats it like a joke, it bothers him. He says to his team, "I've interviewed people who've been through hell, real trauma, real pain, and they've managed to sit here and have a civil conversation. But somehow, someone who has everything, who's lived a life most people can only dream of, can't handle a few basic questions. It's baffling." One of his co-hosts says, "Some people just can't handle not being in control." Howard agrees. He says, "That's exactly it. She wanted to control the narrative. She wanted to dictate how this went. And when she realized she couldn't, she fell apart." The rest of the show continues, but there's a cloud hanging over it. Everyone's still talking about what happened. Listeners are calling in. Some are defending her. Most are not. They're saying she was out of line, that Howard was patient, that she embarrassed herself. And that's the truth of it. She came into that studio with an agenda. Maybe it was to make herself look strong. Maybe it was to prove a point. But whatever it was, it backfired spectacularly. Because instead of looking powerful, she looked petty. Instead of looking confident, she looked insecure. And instead of controlling the narrative, she lost control completely. Howard wraps up the show by saying, "I don't take any pleasure in what happened today. I really don't. But I'm not going to apologize for standing up for myself and my team. We work hard. We try to put on a good show. And we deserve respect, just like anyone else." And that's the real lesson here. Respect. It doesn't matter how famous you are. It doesn't matter how successful you've been. If you can't treat people with basic respect, you're going to have a problem. And that's exactly what happened in that studio. She thought she could walk in and do whatever she wanted. She thought her status would protect her. But Howard Stern doesn't care about status. He cares about authenticity. He cares about real conversations. And when you're not willing to have one, you don't belong in that chair. So there you have it. The full story of what went down when Meghan Markle got kicked off Howard Stern's show. 36 seconds of one comment turned into a complete meltdown. A veteran broadcaster trying his best to keep things professional. And a guest who just couldn't get out of her own way. Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Howard was right to kick her out? Or should he have handled it differently? Let me know what you think. And don't forget to subscribe because we're bringing you more stories like this. More moments where the cameras captured the truth that celebrities don't want you to see. This is the reality behind the glamour. And it's not always pretty.